Okay, welcome everyone. This is the China Today to the 2024, the fourth term. On this session, I will be focusing on the size or the variation or the diversity, whatever you want to call it, of China. So first of all, I will mute everybody first. If you have any questions, please just unmute yourself and interrupt me. And I will now start the share screen. Okay, I hope everybody can see the share screen now. Yes, Judith, and any question? Please unmute yourself. Okay, now China is big. Today we'll talk about the geography. And there's a very interesting questions that have always been on my mind. What are the main difference between Chinese and Western people, for example, those from Europe? I think there are several very distinct differences. You may not want to generalize, but I would just try. Now, we have a very different philosophy from the rest of what we know as in the West. For example, our moral golden rule is not the same as the Western golden rule. Jesus said, "If I want to be treated in some way, then I want to treat other people in the same way." Confucius said the opposite. The way I don't want to be treated, I don't treat that way to other people. So one is a um, moral golden rule in a positive sense. How I want to be treated, then I will do the same to other people. So you want to be treated nicely, therefore you treat other people nicely. Okay. So that is the normal interpretation. But if we drag it to a little bit further, then if I believe in a God, then I want you to believe in the same God. So that's where all the preaching is going. The difference in Chinese is if I don't want to be treated that way, I won't do the same to you. So even if I believe in a God, then I will acknowledge that that is my own business. I'm not preaching to anybody else. I don't want to be hurt, so I don't hurt people. So that is a fundamental difference. Now that difference translates to today's politics is that we hear a lot about preaching of freedom, preaching of democracy, even using arms and wars. The Chinese have always been saying we want to progress in our own way, and we won't export our politics. You will find our example useful, adapt as you want, but we are not forcing anybody to follow our path. So there's a fundamental difference there. This fundamental difference, where does it come from? How come two great civilizations, the Roman Empire on one hand, at that time, China was in the Han Dynasty. Again, just shortly after the great unification from the first emperor. We have the Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor, united China, and then we go for a very short dynasty called Chu. And then after that, we had the Han Dynasty. And Han Dynasty existed approximately at the same time as Roman Empire. In terms of the land area control, is almost the same. In terms of civilizations, both are at the peak of both sides of the Eurasia continent. One is on the west, the Roman Empire. The other one on the east is the Han Dynasty of China. So we have two civilizations almost mature at the same time, but eventually these two civilizations diverge in a very different way. How is that? So one answer may be geography. So today I'd like to look at the geography and then try to understand some kind of Chinese characters through history and through geography. Today's China, in terms of land area, is either the third or the fourth, depending on how you measure America. The largest country, of course, is Russia. And the second largest is Canada. And the third is either China or United States. So it depends on how you measure United States. China land area is already fixed, is that size. Maybe a little bit of margin about the little islands on the South China Sea. Other than that, China is that main land area. Now, before the formation of the People's Republic of China, Mongolia is part of China. But unfortunately, or fortunately, whatever you want to call it, Mongolia becomes independent. And today, Mongolia is not considered part of China. The inner Mongolia is still considered as part of China. So this is the map of China. Notice here, it includes Taipei or Taiwan, the little island there. And then it also includes the Tibet Plateau, the Xinjiang Basin, and then the one part which is missing here, right on top of here, is Mongolia. And then, of course, the inner Mongolia is here. And you look at the color, you will notice that a lot of land area is very high. Look at the scale here. The Xinhai Tibet Plateau. This is the highest mountains in the world. And the Himalaya peaks is actually within China's border. You look at the color green. This is mainly the very productive area of China. So if we draw a line from here to approximately here, then we have a line separating two parts of China. The parts on the east have plenty of rainfall, low-lying areas, pretty good land for farming. And the area on the west is either deserts along here, or plateaus, or another inland plateaus here. You will look at the tectonic plates, and then we have the Oregon, the Himalaya Oregon states, the hills, and we have the cratons, the low flat areas. Three main cratons. One is in Xinjiang region. Another one is in this part of northern China. And of course, the other part is in the South China. So China has three flat area. And right in the middle is the Chenanshan, Oregon, which is another high mountain area. And on the top here, there's another Oregon here. It is the Central Asia hill area. So China is divided on the west side by the Himalaya mountains. Right in the middle, there's another mountain area, Chenanshan. And then right on the north, another mountain area. Basically, China is being cut off from north-south direction. If we want to travel from south to the north, you either go through the flat area along the coast, or you have to climb mountains. There is a mountain which is not survivable to cross in the old times. Of course, the Himalaya. Himalaya is both very high, very cold, and therefore, most of the time, it is almost considered a natural boundary. People can't cross this Himalaya. Of course, we know on the other side of the Himalaya is India, in this region here. So if China want to communicate with the rest of the world, it can either go by sea or through this little corridor out Shenzhen and then into Kyrgyzstan, Afghanistan, and then from the stand into Middle East and then onwards to Europe. So in one way, China is almost an isolated area. It is by itself isolated. We can argue, how then China is not divided into one country here, another country right here, one country here, one country on the top, and one country in the south. China can naturally divide it into maybe 6 or 7 different countries. Interestingly, during the Rome Empire, Rome united all the land around the Mediterranean Sea. At the same time, the Han Dynasty, or the 2 dynasties beforehand, the first emperor, united all of China. But at that time, the main so-called China is actually this northern China craton here. A little bit of control over here, but have been considering the Korean Peninsula right here as a foreign country. But eventually, China need to develop as its population increase, need to improve its food production. And of course, we know that the warmer climates have better sunlight and therefore has better agricultural production. And therefore, China eventually expand into the south. China expand to the west, first because of trade. This is the only corridor which China can trade with the rest of the world. If we consider sea to be another natural boundary, when shipping is not easy or cannot travel very far away. So China has been, for example, trading with Japan right around here, or down under here with the Philippines, Vietnam, and so forth. Sorry, should be down right here, out of the screen. This is the Highland Island. So let's continue looking at this geography first. Cratons is large coherent domain of Earth's continental crust that had maintained a long-term stability. So that is the formal definition of a craton. And so we have one craton here, another one here, another one here. So there are the three main cratons in China. They are Precambrian, so that they are a couple of million years old. One is in North China, South China, and then, of course, the Tarim Block. The North China, South China, and Tarim Block. These are the three main old land area available to China. A large area of China here is created by the continental plate, the Australian plate or the Indian plate slipping underneath the Eurasia plate. And therefore, all the seabeds of the Indian plate is lumped up as the Himalayas. So India is crawling under China in one way, at least the Indian plate, the tectonic plates, and therefore jacking up all this area into plateaus. So this is a very highland area. And at the same time, these areas has a lot of earthquakes because this continent tectonic movement is still occurring, and therefore we still have a lot of earthquakes along these belt lines here. And of course, we know that in the eastern side here around Japan, there's also a lot of earthquakes. So let's look at the North China Craton first. This part. It consists of several different parts. We are not particularly interested in it, but we want to note that this is one great production area land for China in terms of producing wheat. It is the major wheat grow area of China. This is the landscape. The landscape is characterized by mountains, round top mountains, okay? And then these mountains is usually very well forested. There's a lot of trees, etc. And in between the mountains, of course, there will be rivers. So they are pretty beautiful. But the southern part is very distinct. Southern part also consists of a lot of huge high rocks, but these rocks have no vegetation. There's a bare rocks over there. So compare that with the northern part is distinctly different, very different landscape on the south part, southern China block here. These rocks are mostly carbonic. Therefore, it easily suffer weathering, and therefore, the rocks has been cut almost sharply by weathering. These are big rocks, and sometimes there will be a little window over there where the water flows through, and then eventually the water cut through the rocks. Even in such difficult area, we will find little villages in between the valleys. And these valleys are very, very deep. We are talking about 1,000-meter high mountains creating the valley. There's another landscape here. And then, of course, is the other part here, which is the Tarim Block Today's Xinjiang is right here. And then passing through this narrow gap from this side into Afghanistan, from the other side into Kyrgyzstan. And the landscape is look like this. Romantic areas, not much farming, except in Xinjiang. The mountains is more traditional mountains. Mountain still high, but not cliffs. There are slopes, but the slopes are pretty manageable in a way. Here is another look, and this area is particularly dry. Why it is dry? Let's go back to our picture here. This one. This is the Pacific Ocean. Of course, we have the Pacific monsoons going in this way, and therefore we have plenty of rainfall by the rain flowing into the land and then falling on this area. So this is certainly have quite a bit of rainfall. But unfortunately, on this side is almost no rainfall. The reason being, the Indian Ocean is right here, down below in this particular area. Of course, Indian Ocean carries a lot of moisture. The moisture will flow into the land as the land heat up in the daytime. During daytime, land area becomes hot, and therefore air started to rise. So the sea breezes follows with the high rising warm air flowing inland. And as it flow inland, the land gets cool down much earlier than the sea, because sea has a high heat capacity. Land doesn't. So land heat up faster, cool faster. Therefore, when the land cools down, the moisture becomes rain and then fall down. But unfortunately, because there is a huge mountain here, the moist Indian Ocean air going in will participate onto the Indian peninsula or fall on Indian area. And when the wind passes over the Himalaya, it is already very dry. And therefore, this whole area has always been very, very dry. Dry land doesn't promote agriculture. So we see this kind of desert areas in the current block. Therefore, China topology is very diverse. It has snow-capped mountains, deep river valleys, broad basins, high plateaus, rolling plains, and then terraced hills, sandy domes, desert, etc. Almost every kind of landscape exists in China. Almost. And the country, arable land, is only in the lowland area, represent about 12%. The arable area land in China represent about 7% of the world's arable land. But China has a population about 20% of the world's population. And that means on average, the Chinese land produce 3 times the amount of produce than the rest of the arable land in the world. If we consider food is being balanced each year. So we are assuming 100% of the arable land in the world feeds 100% of the population. But this ratio changed sharply when you consider China. China has only 7%, but it feeds 20% of the population of the world. So I have explained this already, and then of course I will make the video available on YouTube, and then you can look at it or stop the video when you're watching on YouTube. We also have the Himalaya Tibetan Plateau. This area is very important to China because it is one of the largest freshwater reservoir. The snow being high, very high, and therefore, as the rain fall on the plateau, they become snow, and therefore, Himalaya has always been a fresh water source. China has three main rivers: the Yellow River, the Yangtze River, and the Pearl River. All the three rivers, fresh water, originate from the Tibetan Plateau. Of course, there's other rivers originate also from the Tibetan Plateau. For example, the river in Vietnam, the river in India, and so on. They are all originate from this freshwater source, being the hilltops of Himalaya. Therefore, to the Chinese, the control of this water source is vital to its long-term survival. And therefore, Tibet, Xinjiang has always been part of China. Of course, it depends on different dynasties. Some dynasty, they will break off, becomes an independent kingdom, and then join later on, and then Chinese boundary increase, decrease, depending on dynasty. But most of the time, I will argue about more than half of the time, Tibet has always been part of China officially, and then for the other half of this, they will be a subordinate vassal state of China. So we can see the nose cap region in Xinjiang, in Himalaya, like this. The southern part of China is mostly carbonic, calcium carbonate, or so forth. And they are known as karst formation. They are carbonic rocks, limestone, marble, etc., which are easily chemically eroded by water and forming this very typical landscape in China. This mountain is not very high, round up, and then there are just little lumps here and there everywhere. This is a very typical landscape. Another landscape like that, surrounded by round mountain tops. This is the very wet southern part of China. Of course, Yellow River is called yellow because the water is yellow. Why the water is yellow? Because Yellow River passed through the Laos Plateau. Laos Plateau should be like that on the left. But for thousands of years of constant human exploitation, so by the beginning of the People's Republic of China in around 1950, Laos Plateau looks like this. It's just yellow soil. Now, this yellow soil is very soft, it will wash down by rain, and it doesn't keep water as well. So when rainfall comes in, which is not very much anyway, it will wash down all the yellow earth, the louse earth, and then it fall onto the river, carried by the Yellow River downstream. When the Yellow Riverbed is narrow, then water flow through faster. The louse sediment will wash along. But in the area when the river is wide, the water flow slow down, and this sediment fall to the bottom of the riverbed, rising the riverbed. So year on, year off, Yellow River become the river of sorrow for the Chinese, because every now and then, Yellow River banks will erupt, and then water flow out from the Yellow River into the local villages, flooding the area. So what people can do? Well, build up the river banks. So throughout millennia, Chinese has been building up the river banks along the Yellow River. Every generation, they keep building up. Today, the Yellow River bed is higher than the land of the bank. That means when a Yellow River bank erupts, break up, water flow out from the Yellow River into the local area. Even when the flood water recedes, no more flood water. Unfortunately, the water which had come out from the Yellow River cannot flow back into the Yellow River, because Yellow River's bed is higher than the land outside it. The only way to get the water out is evaporation. So Chinese has been fighting this Yellow River for thousands of years, and that also built up one very important Chinese characteristic. We have on one side almost desert, on the other side green area. So you may ask, where is this? Well, this is the border of China and Kyrgyzstan. The green part belongs to China. The yellow part belongs to Kyrgyzstan. And the boundary is that 3 rows between the 2 lines. Different governments produce different results just because of country difference. They should be the same land area, but one side is very different from the other side. So the only reason for that to happen is because of human intervention. Of course, China has also this big island in the south, Hainan Island, and of course near that is the South China Sea. This is the Hainan Island here, right here. We have Taiwan here, and then Philippines, Brunei, Vietnam. So what about this area? All the small rocks, all dotted in this area. In this map, it is looked as the area claimed by China, the South China Sea issue. So is this area very... Oh, sorry, I answered the door. How many? Okay, I'm back. So this is the red area is claimed by China. Of course, that will be another issue we want to talk about later on. But um, one simple sentence is before 2010, that wasn't an issue. That was an issue only after 2010. So I will explain that later on in other meetings. Okay, I talk about a line drawn from this to this. It is called the Tan Chuang line or He Her Tan Chuang line. This line. This is very interesting line. This is the population in 2000. The dark area is highly populated, and this is a more current census. We notice the Chinese population almost all lie on the east side of this imaginary line. So you look at the east and the west. The west of the line represents 60%, 64% of the area of China, because before 1935, Mongolia is part of China. So the area there include this part. So this is Mongolia. And therefore the China is like that in 1930 something. Okay, so large area. But after the formation of Republic of China, People's Republic of China, Mongolia is excluded, and therefore it represents smaller area. In terms of population, the area represents only 4% or 6%, depending on which year you count. That means most of the people in China, all we call Chinese, all live on the east side of this imaginary line, although China is all this big. With a little bit exception right here in the Xinjiang region. This is Xinjiang, this part, right at the edge. The rest here is desert. And the little path along here is a deep valley between the two main mountain systems. So Chinese people want to, now, the traditional center of China is around here in Beijing, around this area. In the mouth of this is the mouth of the Yangtze River. So it is the north side of the Yangtze River and the south side of the Yellow River, which form the main cultural, political center of China. And then, of course, today it develops into the rest of China. Okay. I have watched a series of documentary called Journey of Chinese Plants. This series contains 10 episodes, each about 45 minutes long. And in one particular episode, it talks about rice. So I will pick some information from there. According to that documentary, there are about 300,000 plant species in the world, and China had about 10% of them. China is the world's largest producer of rice. making up 30% of the global rice production. Its yield, rice yield, is also the highest in Asia, 6.5 metric tons per hectare. It is produced throughout China, and the diagram on the right represent different species of rice. There are the early indica, middle indica, late indica, and the japonica, 4 different rice which is grown in China and consumed by the Chinese. There are evidence that rice has already started growing by our ancestors 11,000 years ago along the Yangtze River Valley and the Yellow River. Now, we say Chinese has a written history of about 4,000 years, 4,000 years of continuous written history, because we can still read most of our historical books, historical documents, original documents, right up to the Han Dynasty or before, in the Qing Dynasty, the first emperor. The first emperor did several things to China. Number one, standardized all our measuring system in terms of length, weight, volume, etc. Our first emperor standardized and make it the same throughout China. The second part is also standardized the written language. At that time, the written language is still different from today. But in the Han Dynasty, the written language is also standardized into the today's form, looks today's Chinese characters. Before that, it's still character-based, but it is query. It is in a sealed form rather than in our normal writing form. So if we are looking at a manuscript, the original manuscript from the Han Dynasty, which is about 2,000 years ago, most Chinese will recognize about 60% of the characters on that manuscript without particular additional training from universities. We don't need a university degrees to understand what is written on that piece of evidence, of documents, or whatever, or paper. About 60% of the characters will be still in use today, at least. And then with a little bit of education, then most people can read up to 80% of the written work come directly from 2,000 years ago, which is very unique. I don't think there's any Western people who can read 300 years ago's manuscript. Okay, here is a rice production starting from 1960s. 1960, China is is here, second largest. Hey, come on, play. We will see that China and India swap places until the 70s. China becomes a bigger producer, and then a little bit later on, India will catch up. On the line here, we see China's rising up, India keeping low at that time. Now India is catching up, while Chinese are almost staggering, doesn't move much. India is moving up. Indonesia come in. Just remember, in the 1960s, China and India has about the same rice production, but now China is almost double. India rising up again, China almost stagnated, and then India had this very interesting pattern, up and down all the time. Up, and then it will go down again. It's going down now, and then up again. Whereas China still had this fluctuation, but the fluctuation magnitude is much smaller. Oh, stop. Now, right in this area, in the late 1970s, 1980s, we see a slope change. The production yield increases. There are several important slopes here to look at. The first slope is from the 1960s to about late 1960s, before 1970, and then slow down a little bit. These are the difficult years under Mao. And then Mao died in 1978. Then suddenly the slope increases again because of opening up. And China started to integrate with the rest of the world, importing technologies to improve its rice production. Okay, let's continue. And then we had some going down here, and then up again. After that, China stagnate from a few years and then rise again. Okay, from the rest from here, China's almost go flat without much increase for almost 10 years before it rise again. So Chinese technology in terms of agriculture has undergone several stages of change. Okay, let's move on to the next. Again, you can always watch it on YouTube later on. Up. Give me the navigator so that I can go to the next page. Rice terraces. The main technology of this rice terrace is that in the lower near the valley, we have the fish ponds, the farms, and then the rice terrace is on the middle of the hill. And then on the top of the hill will be a forest, either fruit forest or native forest. The whole idea is that we want to create a huge amount of evaporation near the bottom. So as the moist air rises up in the night, it will move up to the top and then becomes either mist or rainfall, and which will fall onto the top of the mountains, which is captured and hold by the forest. Forest is like a big sponge. When water falls on it, it will absorb it, and then the water will seep out, and then the water will seeping out, flowing down man-made channels. And these channels is used to feed the rice field. And this is the whole concept of rice terrains. It needs a lower land where it has a lot of evaporation, so that it has to be in a valley. And this valley will keep the moisture in the day mostly near the bottom. As light fall on, the mountains start to cool and the air drawn up, so the moisture go up to the top of the hill, and then it becomes either mist or rainfall and kept by the forest. Huge mountain tops always is vegetation. If you don't have this vegetation at the top, then you won't be able to hold water. If you can't hold water, then the terrace down below will not have water supply. And you will see that they can manage the land quite uniquely. For example, this area is almost ready for harvest. And this area obviously has been harvested and then is filled with water waiting for the next phase of plantation. The way to do it is to have a little opening along the edge, along the ridge here. So different farmers, when they want water, open up the land here so the water can go in and flood your land. And then after that, you close it off. So they manage the water by opening up and closing up to let the water in and water out. You will see that some of the land has very narrow area, making it very difficult for the Chinese rice farm to use mechanicalized method of farming. We can't have large tractors because the land is just this narrow. It is about, let's say, maybe less than a meter. Widest area, maybe a meter and so, and lands like this, it is very difficult to mechanicalize the farming. So that has been a problem until we develop some mechanical device which can be used primarily in area like this. The traditional large tractors won't work. If you look at the size of these terraces, it is staggering. It is huge. That represents multi-generation work. Father, son, grandson, great-grandson, or even grandfather, great-grandfather, and so on. They work generations after generations looking after these fields. So I would like to show you a few beautiful pictures. The first one is from Yuanyang rice terrace. Just pictures, okay? Beautiful pictures. Another area. This is the village. The village, right, usually in the middle of the land, not at the very bottom, not at the top, in the middle. And then rice field down below, you will see that it's falling down. They are right in the middle. The village right here, and you see the terrace all around it. And by the way, these are Miu people. The Miu people is one of these minor ethnic groups in China. And they are characterized by their very unique silverware. All these are silver jewelry, passed down from a mother to daughter. Some Miu villages are female hierarchical lines. They don't marry. They do have some kind of marriage, but the marriage is the bridegroom go to the bride's house, not the bride go to the bridegroom's house. So it's the son marry other people's daughter and go to the wife's home at night. In daytime, they go back to their mother and work for their mother. Another beautiful landscape. Another beautiful landscape, you will notice that, again, the village is in the middle. Of course, some will be lower, but usually in the middle of the building. Orion still has a unique problem. The problem is that it has always wet. And if it's wet, that means it will have mosquitoes. So how to control mosquitoes? And the wheat, well, the Chinese has developed quite a bit of method. One is using ducks. Another way is using fish. We grow rice and fish together at the same point. So we just leave some area here, open space for the fish. And of course, the fish will be able to swim right through all these little channels. The idea is that we feed the fish. The fish, of course, have waste, and its waste will fertilize the land, and the land and the fertilizer grow the plants. At the same time, the fish control the mosquitoes. If there's any mosquito bugs, the fish will happily eat it. So it is a win-win situation. China has also conducted quite a bit of research in terms of increasing the ability to grow rice in highly salty land. So this is about China's sea rice research. In terms of technology use, this is for seed planting. So these are the seed planting traits, and they are moved by machines, robotic arms, rather than human. And this is a greenhouse. The engineer is installing the trays which will go up and down, and the lower part will have the fertilizer. So the trays will go down deep in the water and then will move up again and to circulate. So this is one way. And in terms of tea picking, China is also one of the largest tea producers in the world. And we pick the young leaves off the top of the plant. It is a very time-consuming task. It used to be done by girls. Today, it is done by robots, robotic arms. The robotic arms will just go through row by row. And in terms of transporting, we talk about all the fruit tree at the mountain tops. So you don't have to worry too much about the fruit tree there. You only go up there, look at whether there is insects and so on, or disease. Otherwise, you just keep the tree growing there. You don't have to do much. But when it is during fruit collection, then how do you move all the produce downhill? Today, of course, we can use drones. This is another seeding greenhouse. Oh, how high it is, I don't know. It's very, very high. So the workers actually work on different levels. And I think this is almost the top now. But very large greenhouse. So my conclusion is giving you an example of Chinese character. If persevere, it will continue working on it until we come to a result. Hardworking, willing to use new technology. It will always involve multi-generation and continuous improvement. Okay, I will stop here, and then any questions, please unmute yourself and then you can ask me questions. Yes, anyone? Yes, please.
Albert, what percentage of rice would be grown using those hothouses?
Rice is still mostly grown on land, not in greenhouses, because we are talking about millions acres of rice field. So that, but all the rice seedlings are grown in greenhouse and then planted. There are some small planting machines, which is about 1 meter wide, and then a single person can push that machine and then keep planting the seedlings. These kind of things now started to appear. But most of the rice are grown on land rather than in greenhouse, except the seedlings.
Do they use dry land rice production at all?
No, rice is grown in wetland.
Some rice will grow in dry land.
The Chinese rice all grow in wetland. That's what I know. Maybe I'm wrong, but I understand the Chinese rice are all in wetland. So ducks and fish are always a combination. Either just ducks, sometimes duck and fish, sometimes ducks and fish and what's that called? The little thing like lobster. Crabs, yeah. A combination of different species, always. There's no single species rice field anymore. Yes.
Albert,
yep.
It was interesting with your rice production chart by country. And whilst I missed the last production for USSR, Russia, I did notice that the North Korean was around about 4.8 tons. And that's interesting because, and I thought Russia was below that, but that's interesting because, as I understand the latest news, the deal between North Korea and Russia in terms of sending troops was in exchange for the Russians supplying half of North Korea's rice production supply for the next year. Just a comment.
No, I don't know why now, we all know that Russia is a very large country. It is the largest wheat producer in the world. But
so where's Russia on this slide, Albert?
Sorry?
Where's Russia on this slide?
Well, Russia doesn't see on this slide. Russia's rice is not, no, Russia is pretty cold area. So I'm surprised they actually grow rice. I would think Russia will mainly grow wheat.
I might be mistaken.
Yeah, because it's too cold.
You can see why North Korea needs the food, though.
Now, the question is, some of the countries, like for example, Japan is a pretty significant rice producing country as well. Where's Japan now? Here? Not here. Interesting. Japan.
Right at the top.
It's under USSR.
Under USA.
Russia.
If you're looking
USSR.
for Japan, it's number 4.
Number 4. Japan. Yeah. Japan is a pretty important rice producing country as well.
Mm.
Given this very small area, Japan is very small in terms of land area. Korea and Russia, Korea is right here, is that right? Or this here?
It's interesting that Myanmar is such a producer too.
Well, Myanmar is right here, so it is in the Indian. The India here is a very good rice producing area.
Mm. Yeah. Okay. It was just a comment. Thanks.
Oh, you're welcome. Anyone else? Zoom. Oh, I stopped share. Okay. No more problem. No more question. Then we'll see you next week then.
Thank you, Albert.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Albert,
Oh, bye-bye.
I don't.
Bye.
Bye.
Albert.